Okay, so you want to own a luxury hotel. You picture walking through a lobby you own at 7:30 in the evening, nodding at a doorman who knows your name, watching the bar fill up, signing nothing. All of that is true, and 7:30 is the hour that lies. Because a luxury hotel room in America now costs about $1,057,000 to build per key before you hire a single person. That is HVS, the firm that surveys American hotel development costs every year. 100 rooms, and you have not opened the doors yet. A luxury hotel is not really a hospitality business. It is a real estate obligation that happens to serve breakfast. Last year, the average New York room, every class, sold for about $333 a night, says Coast. The person who cleans it earns a median of $33,870 a year, says the BLS. Your staff can do that math. So you spend like a landlord and you keep like a shopkeeper. And the hour that decides your year is a different hour entirely. And I will hand it to you at the end. Here is the plan. First, what you are actually buying, because there are 5 kinds of luxury hotel and they earn differently. Second, the ceiling, which is keys times nights, and why no amount of ambition moves it. And third, 2 buildings. One went dark for 8 years with a court case. The other stood 70% finished on the Las Vegas Strip for 14 years with the lights off. Then the verdict, with a number for a good year and a number for a bad one. Now, the thing nobody says out loud about this business. The room is the cheapest thing in the building to sell and the most expensive thing to keep. So what are you really buying when you buy a luxury hotel? You are buying a perishable product with a permanent cost base. The room goes off like fruit. An unsold night is gone at 11 in the morning and it never comes back. The mortgage, payroll, and the linen contract do not care at all. There are 5 of these businesses, and they are not the same business. 1. The urban trophy. Your customer is a corporate traveler on somebody else's account and a wedding party twice a month. Your price point is the New York average of about $333 and above it if the address is right. Your margin is the one number I can actually source for this, and it is thin. CBRE puts full-service gross operating profit at 33.5% in 2024 against 36.9%. 5 years, 3.5 points gone. 2. The destination resort. Your customer is a family that saved for this, and they arrive twice a year at most. Your price point is the room, plus a resort fee of about $42 a night, and in Las Vegas, $45 to $50. That fee is nearly pure margin, and it does not care whether the pool is warm. 3. The residence hybrid. Your customer buys the apartment upstairs and rents the service downstairs. Your price point is a sale, not a night, and HVS has seen these builds reach $2 million a key. Your margin arrives once at closing, and then you own a service business you did not really want. 4. The small lodge, 25 to 60 keys. Your customer pays for scarcity and privacy, and there is no volume anywhere in the model. Your price point is whatever the last guest told a friend, and your build cost can be brutal. The Montage Laguna Beach traded at roughly $2.5 million a key in 2022, says CoStar 5. The casino resort. Here the room is bait. Your customer is a player. Your price point is deliberately soft, and the margin lives on the gaming floor instead. Which brings up something I should say plainly. Of those 5 margins, exactly 1 has a published industry figure behind the full service note. The other 4 are trade knowledge, and anybody who quotes you a precise one is guessing. So pick your building, because you are picking which of 5 businesses you are actually going to run. I am going to build 1 hotel and then use it for the rest of this video. It is a model, it is mine, and here are its 4 inputs before I touch it. 100 keys, 365 nights, luxury occupancy of 68.2%, forecast by STR, and a rate of $295.15. That rate is Marriott's own luxury average for the United States and Canada. It is a company blend rather than a national class figure, and I use it because it is the most solid number anyone publishes. Now the arithmetic. 100 keys times 365 nights gives you 36,500 room nights a year, and that is every unit of product you will ever have. At 68.2%, you sell about 24,900. Times the rate. That is about $7,350,000 of rooms revenue. And before I divide anything, the denominator here is sold nights, not available nights, because those 2 numbers answer different questions. Spread across the building, that is about $73,500 of revenue per room per year. You would assume a room that costs $1 million to build brings in something like $1 million of business over a few years. It brings in about 7% of its own build cost a year in revenue before a single expense. Not profit. That is revenue. Let me check that against the real market. My model implies revenue per available room of about $201. The American average across all hotels last year was $100.02, says Coach. So the model is running at roughly double the national number, which is exactly where a luxury hotel should sit. And that is my sanity check pass. Now watch what 10 points of occupancy. 10 points of a 100-key hotel is 3,650 nights. At that rate, 10 points is about $1,080,000 of revenue, up or down. That is the whole swing between a good year and a bad one, and it is one number. Your obligations do not move by a single dollar in either direction. I wanted to give you the occupancy at which an American luxury hotel breaks even. That number is not publicly available anywhere I could find, so I will build it from costs later instead. Because there is a second set of numbers between that revenue and your pocket, and it is bigger than most owners expect. One of those numbers is a fee you pay every month for furniture you have not bought yet, and I will come back to. Because the ceiling is fixed, and almost everything under it is somebody else's claim. Every business has one line that eats it, and in a luxury hotel, that line has a uniform and a name badge. Service is the product, and service is people. So how much of your revenue walks out of the building? Luxury payroll ran to 36.4% of total revenue, against 30.7% for hotels as a whole. That is CBRE, and the figure is from 2018, which is the most recent clean split I have. Applied to my model, payroll is about $2,700,000 a year. Call that a floor rather than an limit, because I applied a total revenue ratio to a rooms-only model, and a real hotel also sells food, drink, and events. Per sold night, that is about $107 of payroll on every room you fill. I checked that two ways, once through the annual total and once through the nightly rate, and both land in the same place. Here is who that money reaches. America employs 397,640 maids and housekeeping cleaners in traveler accommodation, says the BA. The median wage is $16.28 an hour, or $33,870 a year. It is one of the biggest job categories in American hospitality, and it is the one your entire brand rests on. The brochure calls it hospitality. The ledger calls it a mortgage with a doorman. Then there is the bill nobody budgets for. Hotel insurance rose 17.4% in 2024 to $683 per available room. That came after a 19.5% rise the year before. On 100 keys, that is about $68,000 a year to insure a building you are already paying for. Put the operating costs together, and CBRE says gross operating profit came to 34.8% last year, down from 35.1%. You would assume that is the owner's share. It is not the owner's money. It is the money the owner argues over, because the operator, the brand, and the lender all take their cut from that same line. And the lender is the one you should watch. TREP put lodging delinquency in commercial mortgage-backed securities at 6.81% in June of last year. About $18.7 billion of hotel loans in that market are coming due, and roughly 70% of them float. Floating means your biggest single obligation is repriced by somebody in a room you will never enter. So payroll is the floor, insurance is the surprise, and the loan is the thing that decides whether any of it matters. None of those three has read your brochure. Now meet the people who get paid before you do. A luxury hotel is usually run by an operator, and the operator takes a base fee of about 3% of gross revenue, foreign luxury, plus an incentive fee if the hotel does well. On my model, the base fee alone is about $220,000, then the flag on the door. HVS puts franchise royalties at 3 to 5% of rooms revenue. IHG's own published terms say 5 to 6%. They disagree, so I am using the operator's own number, because a company quoting its own fees is the more authoritative source. That is about $367,000 a year for the name above the end. One discipline note, because this is where people double count. You normally have one structure or the other, managed or franchise, so you do not stack both fees on the same building. Then the bookings. Commission runs 15 to 25% of the room rate. I will not guess what share of your nights arrive there, because it varies by hotel. And now the fee I promised you, the one for furniture you have not bought. It is called a reserve for replacement, and HVS puts it at 3 to 5% of total revenue. Management agreements commonly set aside 2 to 5% of gross revenue every month for it. I am using 4%, which is my midpoint, so about $294,000 a year. Every month you pay into a fund to replace carpet, mattresses, and lamps that are still perfectly. Miss that schedule and the brand soon has a problem with it. Add it up, and fees and reserve alone run about $514,000 to $660,000 a year. All of that assumes the building is legal, which is not a given at all. If you have ever stood in a hotel lobby and wondered who gets paid first, subscribing helps. Before you sign a construction, you should know what the worst case looks like on an American hotel site. In October of 2019, the Hard Rock Hotel going up in New Orleans collapsed while it was still being built. 3 workers died: Jose Ponce Areola, Anthony Magret, and Quinion Wimberly. 18 more were seriously hurt, and 2 of the bodies stayed in the rubble for months. The following April, OSHA cited 11 companies for a combined $315,536. One of those was a willful violation against the engineering firm over steel bolt connection, and citations like that can be. An Orleans Parish grand jury later declined to indict anyone. $315,000 in penalties, 3 lives lost, and the hotel never took a guest. The industry around you is enormous and no more profitable than it was. AHLA expects about $805 billion of guest spending in American hotels. It also puts profit per available room at roughly 90% of where it stood in 2019. Record spending, thinner profit per room 7 years later, and the competition is still being built. CoStar counted 8,039 luxury rooms under construction in March, 4.5% of luxury supply, up from 3.8% 6 months earlier. Every one of those rooms will want your Tuesday. The rules move too. The FTC rule on unfair or deceptive fees took effect in May of last year, and the penalty runs to $53,088 for each violation. Your resort fee is now a compliance question with a number attached to it. Which brings me to the most famous hotel in America and the 8 years it spent dark. The renovation was not the reason, and I will show you what was. It also carries the other thing you inherit, which is a ceiling written into the deed. That one decides how much of a hotel stays a hotel. Meet Wu Xiaowei, who was the chairman of a Chinese insurance company called Anbang. In 2014, Anbang bought the Waldorf Astoria in New York for $1.95 billion. The building had about 1,400 rooms then, so the price came to roughly $1.4 million a key. That is more per room than the median cost of building a luxury hotel from nothing. On the 1st of March 2017, the Waldorf closed its doors for a renovation. Picture the doors on Park Avenue closed, with the clock from the 1893 World's Fair locked inside for 8 years. Closing a hotel like that is not free. 2 years earlier, the New York Hotel and Motel Trades Council had settled a severance package worth about $149 million for the staff. The terms ran to 29 days of pay for every year worked, 58 days for tipped employees, and some individual payouts past $300,000. That is what a union contract does when a luxury hotel goes dark, and you pay it for closing rather than for running. Then the reason for the 8 years arrived, and it had nothing to do with carpet. In February of 2018, Chinese regulators seized Anbang. In May, the Shanghai No. 1 Intermediate People's Court sentenced Wu Xiaowei to 18 years in prison for fraudulent fundraising and embezzlement, according to the court and to reporting at the time. The sums in that case ran to 65.2 billion yuan raised improperly, with 10.5 billion confiscated. Carpet was never the delay. A change of owner, a state seizure, and a court case were, and none of that speeds up a building site. The renovation was reported at around $2 billion. And I say reported because no audited figure has been published. You would assume that $2 billion buys a bigger hotel. The Waldorf reopened on the 15th of July last year with 375 guest rooms. About 1,400 keys went in. 375 came out, alongside 372 apartments. Roughly 3/4 of the rooms stopped being hotel rooms for good. A room can become an apartment. An apartment never becomes a room again. 8 years, and 4 months later, the machine came back with 1/4 of the keys. That is death by institution, and it is slow enough to watch. The second death took days. The Fontainebleau in Las Vegas was a $2.9 billion project, and by the spring of 2009, it stood 70% built. About 3,300 construction workers were on site. Then in April, the banks refused to fund about $800 million. The tower stood there, finished enough to see. The money stopped, and that was enough. By June, the project was in Chapter 11. Here's the catch. A 70% finished tower on the Las Vegas Strip was worth about $150 million, which is what Carl Icahn paid in 2010. That is about 5 cents for every dollar the project had cost. It stayed shut. Icahn never opened it, and in 2017 sold it for $600 million. So the most profitable move anyone made with that building was not opening it. It finally opened in December of 2020 at a reported $3.7 billion. Reported again because nobody publishes the audited number. And in May of last year, the Las Vegas Review Journal reported dozens of dealers cut, with sources putting it as high as 60. 14 years of waiting, $3.7 billion, and still trimming staff a year and a half after opening. One took 8 years to die, the other took a single spring, and neither was killed by a bad hotel. So, should you buy a luxury hotel or not? Only if you buy it for less than it costs to build. Here is the verdict. Startup cost, 100 keys at median luxury build price, about $106 million. Realistic annual revenue at 68% occupancy, about $7,350,000. Owners cash in a good year, before property taxes and the mortgage, about $2 million. That is generous because luxury payroll runs higher than the all-hotel margin. Now drop the margin to 30%. Which is my assumption and nobody else's, and a bad year at 63% pays about $1.5 million. The swing is about $480,000. Break even in customers against a 60% loan at 7% is about 55,000 sold nights. The building holds 36,500. It is right for a buyer paying about $811,000 a key for a hotel that stands, and wrong for anyone needing a mortgage. Remember the ceiling in the deed. Every luxury hotel has one, and it is written in the same language as the Waldorfs. A room can be sold once a night forever, or once as an apartment. The second sale pays faster, and it takes that key off the board for good. That is the ceiling, and every owner eventually meets it. And remember the lobby at 7:30. That hour is the one that sold you the building, and it is the 1 hour that cannot tell you anything. The year is decided on a Tuesday in February at 3 in the afternoon, when the lobby is empty and the payroll runs 10 points of occupancy live in those afternoons, and 10 points is about $1 million of revenue. So here it is again. A luxury hotel is not a hospitality business. It is a real estate obligation that happens to serve breakfast. You wanted to walk through a door you owned, nod at staff you paid, and watch strangers admire your. You can have all of it as long as you know what you are actually buying. A luxury hotel is a machine for turning rooms into real estate, one empty night at a time.